All right, so welcome everybody. Appreciate everybody joining us today for Performance School. Again, just like always, we want to make a community of this. So anytime that you feel like you can invite somebody or encourage somebody, if it's just a light nudge or if you got to legitimately drag them to this, I think it's good because it reinforces our community. Excited. I'll turn it over to Jake Wilks here in a second. He's from Firefly. Excited to have him on camp with us today on the Zoom. We do have a couple teams already using Firefly as a tool, but hopefully this will encourage just some awareness of the technology and may allow us to have another tool for our repertoire. But generally speaking, too, for the week going into spring break, if we can, as an entire organization, just message basics of just being smart. I know everybody's doing that already in your own way, but if you need ammo to talk to athletes, shoot, even to talk to coaches about this time, things that you can bring up is have a plan. It's really easy when I'm about to jump on a plane to just say, oh, I just need to go. Well, no, how are you getting to the airport? This Friday, when a lot of our kids are leaving campus, there's going to be some bad weather here in State College. So what's the plan for that? Have they factored that in? Have we factored that in? What's the plan for returning? Okay, so having a plan. 2, no solo missions. There may be some times where you're alone, but you shouldn't be alone when you go out. Just like going downtown here in State College, you should never be alone. And run with a buddy. Practice great leadership. Don't be afraid to check a friend. And at the same time, if somebody checks you as an athlete, listen to them because they're looking out for you. And then the final thing is we're always athletes. We're always coaches. So whenever we come back, we got to be stronger than when we left. So obviously have a great time. Athletes earn this time during spring break, but just make sure that when we come back, it's not in a hole. It's actually stronger than we left. So good ammo. If you can, just kind of share that message in your own way, add your twist to it. But anyway, we'll move to the next segment, and I'll, just like always, we'll have about a 10-15 minute conversation with our guest. Today, I already mentioned Jake Wilks from Firefly will be joining us. He's the national director across the entire organization. We have worked with him recently, as have some of our other coaches on campus. A little bit about Jake. He played football at Samford University. He was a running back, correct, Jake? Okay, running back at Samford, down in Alabama, and we look forward to having him join us today. So, Jake, I'm going to make you a co-host.
Cool.
Here, you should be able to share your screen if you would like to. And just a reminder for everybody, we're recording this. We can buff out anything that happens that we don't want shared, but just try to keep it professional at all times. And Jake, you're good to go.
Cool. Thank you, Dr. Nelly. I appreciate it. First of all, shout out to Christina Jeffries. What's up, Christina? It's good to see you. Oh, my goodness.
Hey, man, it's good to see you, too. I'm so glad that I was able to hop on this one today. So,
this is awesome.
It's good to see you, brother. How's everything going?
Great. I got a dad at 8 months, so I'm
awesome.
I'm learning the dad life and traveling all over the country at the same time, so balancing that. But anyways, we can talk offline so we don't spend the whole 15 minutes chatting about my life. But nice to meet everyone else on the call. I met Christina way back probably 4 years ago. I think I was like 2 months into the job, so it was really new. But outside of Christina, could I get like a little show of hand or anybody seen Firefly, used it, have experience with it? A couple people? Yep. Cool. Well, just to show everyone firsthand, this is the technology. Okay, so very, very portable, very mobile, very, very simple and effective for athletes to use. I think my background playing at Samford, and that's not Stanford, just so everybody knows, I'm 5'7", so I was a FCS athlete. But that being said, I definitely understand the difficulties of finding the time to recover and finding those periods as a student athlete where you can actually get into recovery windows that make a big effect. Most of the time you're trying to find time in the athletic training room to get in a boot or to get in the corner with some massage gun or whatever it might be. And if those times are taken, you're kind of left in the dust there. So what I love about Firefly, and I'll get into the research and the science behind it, but to keep it simple, Our technology moves blood very, very well. It helps increase blood flow throughout the body, but it doesn't limit the athlete's mobility or their ability to move and go about their day. So it's a simple technology that you slap on the legs. It was actually developed as a medical device to displace compression boots in the surgery center, believe it or not. What the medical version found is that you could comfortably stimulate the nervous system directly using the patent that we have on the technology, which is called the on-pulse technology. It's basically a modified stem signal that was developed to be able to comfortably stimulate the peroneal nerve, which starts at the top of the hips, wraps around the fibular head, and goes down to the toes. When you comfortably stimulate that nerve, it causes the foot to flutter or to dorsiflex. You get this tiny rhythmic pump in the foot. So what you're doing is, instead of massaging and squeezing the lower extremities to get that lymphatic return, you're actually using your body's own mechanics to move blood back to the heart faster. What they found clinically is that when you stimulate the nerve directly, you avoid muscular fatigue that you would get from a muscle stem, because you're getting larger, with the muscle stem, you're getting larger contractions in a certain area of the body for that muscle group. With Firefly, you're stimulating the nervous system safely and comfortably, causing the leg or the foot to flutter, and that actually moves blood back to the heart. So when you talk clinical research, all of our research is compared to sequential compression boots. In your world, that's Normatec, recovery pump, whatever you're using for compression. What we found is that by stimulating the nerve, you actually increase lower extremity blood flow all the way from hip to toe by 400%, whereas compression boots are around 117. And you also get venous and arterial flow, so you get blood back to the heart faster as well. So just by putting the sticker below the knee, and I'll actually demo and show you guys where to put it and how the foot flutters, you're getting full body blood flow. And that's the unique part about this technology, is that, when you put a sticker below the knee, it's kind of hard to understand it at first glance that you're getting blood throughout the body. But the way our mechanics, the system works is you're flushing the whole body. So how is it good for athletes? Well, obviously getting blood flow to the legs and getting reoxygenated blood flow and lymphatic return can help with recovery. But the benefit to this technology is there's not any limitations on your wear times and where athletes can use it. So if you're traveling with your team, and I know Dr. Nelly's used it for travel a good bit, you talk about flights, bus rides, those are pretty challenging times for athletes to feel either prepared to play or recovered post-game. So if you're having multiple games in a week and you're traveling here and there, you could take 20 packs, of Firefly, distribute them to your athletes, and you could take a 4-hour bus ride and turn that into a 4-hour recovery session. So you're getting constant blood flow immediately post-game before the other team is even back to the field house. So we have a lot of teams using this to get into quicker recovery windows during travel. It's going to help keep the legs fresh. When I played at Stanford, we had 9-hour bus rides, which you guys probably never have to do. But we did 9-hour bus rides, make you feel like you can't walk for 3 weeks. So this would be an amazing resource for teams that are traveling a good bit on flights or buses. You could wear it straight through TSA. We have many of our teams that'll wear these walking through the airport. They're not going to stop you at TSA. It's a medical device, so you have no issues. But wheels up to wheels down. So you're taking 4 or 5 hours, 2 to 3 hours of travel and turning that into a recovery session, so that your athletes at least have fresh legs post game or are able to get their body back to baseline faster. So that's one way being used. The other is just general recovery. If you've got athletes that are playing significant minutes and they're trying to, keep their legs fresh throughout the week, if you could take an athlete and allow him to be out of the athletic training room or out of the treatment room, put on a recovery device for 2 to 4 hours while they're watching Netflix, studying in the library, whatever it might be, as an athlete, you have an effortless tool that you could use on the go and not be stuck waiting around the athletic training room. So a lot of our teams and our programs are utilizing this when the athletic training room is full, when there's a lot of treatments going on. Especially if you're a football player and you're 40 hours in the field house already, you're just ready to get the heck out of there. You could grab a pack, go back to your dorm and recover. So we do recommend about 2 to 4 hour windows as far as wear times, as far as maximizing the recovery. We found, and you can look at our website, some research. I know I don't have time to dive into all of it, but essentially what we found is that 2 to 4 hours of blood flow actually maximize the effect that blood flow can have on delayed onset muscle soreness and fatigue. Whereas most athletes are getting into recovery windows for about 20 to 30 minutes. There's not a lot of research showing how that, affects the body the next day. It'll provide a little bit of immediate relief just because you're massaging the legs, you're getting some of that blood flow. But the ability to increase it for 2 to 4 hours can actually help the athlete get back to their peak performance levels a lot faster. So that's why we recommend a little bit longer wear times. And again, because our stem is non-fatiguing, you don't have to worry about fatiguing the muscle group like a traditional muscle stim. The only time you'd want to wear it more than 2 to 4 hours is for injuries. The product was developed in the medical space to be put on post-surgery for edema, just to reduce swelling. So let's just say you have an athlete that has inflammation, whether that's an ankle sprain, knee, hamstring, quad. I deal a lot with baseball hit by pitches, and it, blows up like a balloon. This is a really cool technology because you can get constant blood flow for 24 hours and have no negative effects towards that. So if you've got an ankle sprain, you put on a Firefly as kind of the first line of defense, you're flushing blood to that ankle for 24 hours straight. All that reoxygenated blood and all that blood to that ankle is going to help flush out that inflammation and swelling a lot quicker, just because you're able to get 24 hours of treatment. So the only time you'd wear it for more than 2 to 4 hours is for injuries or return to play. Does that make sense? So that was I know a very, very quick, brief overview of the technology, but I want to leave plenty of time for questions. So we'll open up the space for that. And then before we get off the call, Josh, give me like a 2-minute heads up so I can show everybody where to place it and stuff. Cool.
What kind of questions do we have? Conversation starters. I mean, we have a couple prepared questions, but
cool.
What pops up?
Yeah, I got a couple. Hi, Jake. I'm Adam. Work with men's soccer here at Penn State. We actually used your devices this past season and had a ton of success with them, and we're definitely going to re-up for this next season because
awesome.
They're very useful. One of my first questions is sometimes with the athletes putting them on themselves or like being seated or lying down in different positions on the bus, sometimes they wouldn't get that flutter like in their foot, especially if they're like sitting up and their feet are on the ground.
Yep.
If they're not getting that flutter, is it not working? Or
no, it's still, yes, great question, Adam. It's still effective. So, and it's natural for the body when you're in flexion and extension, that nerve changes. And when you're in flexion, your feet will dance like no other, right? You see when you're sitting at a 90-degree angle and your feet are dangling, you're going to get that flutter. When you extend your leg, that flutter is going to be a lot more minimal. There's two things. You can increase that. There's 7 levels of stem right here. So you guys can increase this up or down. So you could adjust that stem level. And a lot of athletes will turn the stem up a little bit higher when they're either, laying down and their legs are extended, or, if they're not getting the flutter, they can increase it. But once that, they should be able to feel that stem all the way through their toes. And as long as they're feeling that penetrating the toes, that's circulating back. So when you are walking and you're ambulant, your motor system overrides the flutter anyway. You won't like it. You can be mobile in this because your feet are not affected when you're applying pressure. It'll actually feel more of like a pulse or a heartbeat down your leg when you're moving. When you're resting or you're sitting, you do want to see a slight tick, and you don't have to be doing the stinky leg. Like you just need a little tick. But based off the athlete's kind of preference as far as the stem level, what level they need to be on.
Cool. Thank you. And then I had just kind of a random question, but we use ours very straightforward. We use it on the bus during travel, and then like match day +1. We're looking to invest more in it and use it a little bit more frequently. Do you have any like really creative applications that you've seen that might be out of the box or not like a traditional kind of way to use them?
Yeah. For Adam, I'll follow up with an email. I've got a couple of use cases from some of our NCAA programs and our MLS teams that have broken down how they've implemented it. And I've seen some pretty interesting use cases, but I think that'd be helpful just to see how they broke it down. So I'll send you those follow-ups. We've had, a couple teams using it as truly a pre-warm-up, a warm-up device. So they're using it a couple minutes before the game as they're going through their warm-up. We have a lot of teams using it during film now when they're sitting down. I know football and other programs are familiar with 4 to 5 hours of film in a day. So we have a lot of our teams that are actually, a lot of teams get taped, or I'll just speak to my experience at Sanford. We'd get taped around 11, 12. We'd go to film at 2 or 3. So we are in ankle tape with hardly zero. My feet are blue, right? No circulation to my feet. And I'm sitting down for the next 3 hours before practice. So the time I hit the field, I feel like a brick, I'm like, I can't move. So we've had a lot of teams express, hey, well, while we're sitting down watching film in our tight ass ankle tape, my tight tape, why not, why not get a little blood flow to the feet and just put some units on while we're at rest? Because what's unique about Firefly is even though you're passive, you're using the body's own activity to move blood. So it's like an active recovery and warm up type of tool, just for the simple fact that you're pumping the dorsiflexion. You're getting that soleus pump while you're sitting.
Yeah, no doubt. Yeah, that's a great idea. Or like even I think like during the day, like if we have a 7 o'clock game on a Tuesday night and they're sitting in class all day, to have them put those on and use them during class time would be pretty cool too. But yeah, thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Jake, I have a quick question. Like, it is FDA approved just for the lower extremity, correct?
So the FDA approval is, so on the medical side, the medical version is called the Gecko. It's FDA approved for DVT, edema, and wound care. Firefly is the over-the-counter or the adapted application, and it's FDA approved for recovery and FDA approved for comfortably stimulation of a peripheral nerve. So I guess what I mean by that is we have many teams using it on different nerves outside of the peroneal nerve. So for our baseball programs, our upper extremity athletes, the radial, the brachial, the median, the ulnar have been used frequently by our MLB teams, our NCAA baseball programs. It's experimental because we don't have the clinical research behind it. But that being said, the FDA approval on the on-pulse, the NMES signal that we use is for a peripheral nerve. So superficial nerves that are peripheral enough to stimulate the frequencies and the wavelengths that we have on our technology was developed specifically for that, for the nerve.
Okay, makes sense, because I've seen it used on the upper extremity. I was like very confused on how or why it was being used upper extremity without appropriate research, if that makes sense.
Well, that's why it's a user preference. We don't advertise upper extremity. So if you go to our website or anything that we publish, it's all anecdotal. So if you are using on the upper extremity as experimental at this point, that being said, it has been very prevalent to us that teams are doing it regularly. We actually, unfortunately and fortunately, were highlighted during the Georgia National Championship game. Holly Rowe was the ESPN reporter, and she was reporting on how Georgia was recovering for the national championship. And I'm like, oh my gosh, we're on national TV. And she holds up her arm and she has a Firefly on her forearm. And I'm like, oh crap. and she says that she spoke to Ron Corson, and this is how Stetson Bennett's been recovering all season long for his arms. So it was great to get a national TV call out, but it was also, my inbox was full of teams saying, Jake, what the heck? You didn't tell me we could use this on the upper extremity. So it's one of those things that more and more teams are doing. We're out at the MLB winter meetings in December. We're in 28 of the 30 MLB teams now. So it's been our most penetrated professional league, mainly because they're flying 60, 70 times a year. But what we were aware of, but not fully aware of, how many of the MLB teams were using on the upper extremity. So our main goal at the MLB winter meetings was to say, hey, teach us your protocols. Where are you placing it? What is the feedback? And Dr. Nelson, I could follow up with an email with all the upper extremity pictures, what we're seeing. But the feedback was very similar to the peroneal nerve. Their pitchers are using it post outing. They're putting it on the radial, the brachial, or the ulnar. They're getting a slight dorsiflex or a slight flutter in the hand. But the feedback has been, hey, my pitchers are getting 2 to 4 hours wear time, but they're not they're feeling more fresh, and we're not worried about fatiguing the upper arm. So I'll just show you one little placement, and it's really just pretty simple. You could place the battery right here where the forearm is. This is where all the stem is, guys. So in the back of the device is where all the electrodes are. The word Firefly is just anchor. So there's just gel on this, no adhesive or no stem. That stem can wrap right under where that ulnar nerve will lie in. Very simple for athletes to move around with it. When I turn it on, I'm going to get a small little pulse in my arm here. So I got a small little flutter in the hands. You see my hand? It's just a slight little tick. My nerve is pulsing, but it is not uncomfortable. It's not, obviously like a traditional muscle contraction that you're seeing. So it's very minimal, which I think, as far as pitchers and upper extremity athletes that are pretty concerned with fatiguing their arms, this has been a really good solution for them. Again, Scott, to your point, no research on this yet. We are looking to get upper extremity research, but right now it's just anecdotal and applications from our teams.
What other questions? Does anybody have anything specific?
I've got one for you real quick.
Cool.
So lower extremity injuries that are rather immobile. Can you use this without, like, because you have to turn it on so much to where you feel a tick. If that is not what we're looking for, like I don't want to move my lower extremity at all. If I put it on, just turn it on to like 1, and I'm not getting that response, is it still working?
Yeah, when you stimulate the nerve, you're still the blood flow is still pumping.
Okay.
You're still getting that
Yeah.
stimulation for the nerve because it's going to
Mhm.
fire. So like that nerve triggers the little muscle fibers surrounding that nerve and actually kind of squeezes the back vein of the calf. So you're still kind of
Mhm.
using the heartbeat for the lower extremity to squeeze that, and almost like a calf pump. So it's
Mhm.
still getting that circulatory effect in the lower extremities. Even if you're in a walking cast, though, if you're immobile, you know, a lot of our teams are using this in conjunction with other treatments. So if you had an injury
Okay.
and it was maybe it was an ankle or a stress line fracture or whatever it might be in the foot, toe, and you are worried about extreme fluttering, I guess is the appropriate word, flutter. I would leave it at a minimal level, but I would still use it for
Mhm.
for somebody that's non-ambulant. So if they're in a walking boot, or even if you've got them in a game ready or a compression device, it's still something you could use in conjunction with other treatments.
Okay. All right. Cool. Thank you.
Tell you what, we have about 5 minutes left. Jake, if you want to look at some of the operational aspects of using it, maybe that sparks more questions as well. So
Yep.
if you want to look at like placement on the leg, I think maybe now would be a good time.
Okay, perfect. So make sure when you're teaching your athletes, guys, I'm on my phone, so I'm just going to put you down here. Do you guys see this? Great. All right, so I got my Penn State kicks on, by the way. Look at that, navy and white. Boom. I usually start with the ankle bone. I teach my athletes go straight from the ankle bone. You'll trace straight up to where the fibular head is, and make sure these indicating arrows, those arrows, go directly on top of the fibular head. The wing graphic goes behind the back of the calf, and the word Firefly go around the front. Everybody see that? Just like that. When I turn the unit on, hit that plus button, I'll start to see a small pulse in the leg here. I can turn it up to level 2, and then we should start seeing the foot flutter. Just a little dance. When I step down, no more flutter, small pulse in the leg, and that can be fully ambulant. Cool. Everybody see that? The biggest mistake that we do see made, and this is something you should watch out for your athletes, they will align. This is the number one thing we see. They'll put the dots on the fibular head, but they'll put the stem around the front of the knee. Anybody seen this with your athletes? Right? There is nothing that you are stimulating here. So all I feel is a tiny little stem signal going into basically my knee bone. So this will not get the job done if you have it this way. Everybody see the difference in that? That would be the number one thing that we see from athletes or athletic trainers or whoever's implementing it, and they won't think it's working because it's not. So you got to make sure it's on the right way. Cool.
I'm going to talk about athletes. This may not be for what we deal with routinely, but driving with this unit.
Yeah, if you're driving, I'd put it on the non-driving leg, and you could still, the good thing is if you're putting it on one leg, it's still going to get blood back to the heart. You might miss out on some of the microcirculation in the leg side that it's on, but you're still getting that blood back to the heart and pushing it to the other side of the body. So I'd say it'd still be beneficial if they're driving to put it on their right leg, have some blood flow going on the bus ride or when they're driving their car to wherever they're going. It can still be a beneficial, at least they're getting some blood flow during the ride. Probably not safe to use it on the pedal foot if they're fluttering and the driving might be a little affected. So I would definitely use it on the unilateral side. But for the most part, we do recommend wearing them bilaterally on both legs. Unless it's for an injury, then you could wear it on the affected side only, and you can leverage all 60 hours. And I guess that's the other, what I want to make sure everybody knew is there's 30 hours per unit. So you get 30 hours of use per device, which for most of our athletes using it for 1 to 2, 3 hours, it could be anywhere from 15 to 30 treatments. If you're using it for injuries, then I would leverage all 60 hours on that one side. If it's a chronic, acute, or even an itis that somebody's dealing with, we would say the more the better, just so you can get more blood flow to that area and have that athlete, reduce some of that inflammation. I would leverage all 60 hours of the devices on that one side.
So any questions, thoughts, or discussion points?
Cool.
All right. Well, I'll tell you what, I do have a couple units here that we received a couple weeks back. If anybody's interested that's on the call that would like to explore using this, it could be for yourself to become more knowledgeable about it so that you can talk to your athletes about it. Or if you have specific athletes that are doing certain things, just reach out to me directly and I'll hook you up with a unit. So if there's no other questions, we will make sure that this recording is put up in its usual spot on YouTube. We'll blast it out back on the Performance Hub. And if we can, next time, let's see if we can bring a friend and just keep bringing people to the community as best we can. Jake, thanks so much for the time, man. And if you can connect with Adam, or if you want to send me anything, I'll make sure everybody receives that information. So does anybody have anything else?
I really appreciate your time, and I'll follow up with those emails. Scott, I can send you the pictures of the upper extremity. Adam, I'll send you the use cases from the soccer. Christina, I'll follow up just to say hey to you and catch up. Cole, thanks for being on the call. Dan, thanks for being on the call. And Dr. Nelson, thank you for your support. It means a lot to us. One of these days I gotta get on campus. Penn State is still a bucket list school for me to visit. So I know you guys are dying to get down to Birmingham, Alabama. So if you guys ever visit here, lots of good breweries. Come on. Lots of good breweries, barbecue and breweries.
Yeah, you're always welcome. Come visit. You're always welcome.
Thank you, guys. All right. Have a great week. Appreciate you.
Appreciate everybody. Take care.
Thank you, Dr. Bye-bye.
Thanks, guys.